Superman Up, Up, and Away is an 8-part storyline. It takes place 1 year after the conclusion of Infinite Crisis. During that event, Superman lost all of his powers when prolonged exposure to red solar radiation weakened him while he fought against the Kryptonian clone Superboy Prime. Without his abilities, he lived for a year as Clark Kent, working as a journalist for the Daily Planet and continuing to protect Metropolis through investigation and truth. Citizens believed Superman to be gone and built tributes in his honor, while Lex Luthor's corporate empire collapsed, leaving him stripped of his resources and influence. Luthor, consumed by anger toward both the city and the hero he blamed for his downfall, began searching for a way to strike back. The story opens with Clark investigating the operations of Intergang, a powerful global criminal network. Though powerless, he uncovers their activities through journalism. At the same time, Luthor recovers a Kryptonian relic known as the Sunstone, an artifact connected to advanced alien technology. He intends to use it to awaken and control a dormant Kryptonian warship once commanded by General Zod, rebuilding it as a weapon to destroy Metropolis. To further his plans, Luthor manipulates the scientist K. Russell Abernathy, transforming him into the new Kryptonite Man. Abernathy, overwhelmed by kryptonite radiation, becomes a destructive being directed against Superman's legacy. Realizing the threat, Clark activates the emergency signal watch to summon his cousin Kara Zor-El, also known as Supergirl. She battles Kryptonite Man but is nearly overcome by his immense energy. Clark, meanwhile, confronts Luthor through his reporting, exposing his crimes to the public. Luthor retaliates by attacking him personally, and later recruits the Toyman, a criminal inventor, to build kryptonite weapons and strengthen the Sunstone's connection to the warship. When Luthor's plan is set into motion, kryptonite shards are released across Metropolis, the warship reactivates, and mechanical drones are deployed against the city. As the invasion begins, Clark's powers gradually return. First, his strength and invulnerability reappear, followed by flight and heat vision. Regaining his abilities, he joins the battle to defend Metropolis, fighting villains unleashed in the chaos, including Bloodsport, Livewire, Riot, Silver Banshee, Hellgramite, and Metallo. Though weakened by the heavy concentration of kryptonite, his powers stabilize as he continues resisting the assault. Ultimately, he confronts Luthor aboard the Kryptonian vessel. Using his heat vision, Superman disables the ship's controls, forcing it into collapse. Both he and Luthor fall into the waters below, where they continue their battle without weapons or technology. Fully restored, Superman defeats Luthor in direct combat and ends the attack. After securing the city, Superman retrieves the Sunstone and carries it to the Arctic. There, the crystal expands into a newly formed Fortress of Solitude, becoming his sanctuary and a lasting reminder of his Kryptonian heritage. The storyline closes with Superman's complete return as the protector of Metropolis, while also affirming Clark's courage and resilience during the year he lived without powers. This conclusion leads directly into the Back in Action storyline and establishes a renewed balance between Clark's human identity and Superman's legacy. Superman Last Son was published from December 2006 through mid-2008. The storyline introduces a mysterious Kryptonian child whose sudden arrival forces Superman to reconsider his long-held belief that he was the only survivor of Krypton. The events begin when a spacecraft crashes into Metropolis. Inside, Superman finds a young boy who speaks in the Kryptonian language and demonstrates immense strength by lifting heavy objects. The child is immediately taken into custody by the Department of Metahuman Affairs, an organization overseeing superhuman activities, where Director Sarge Steele orders extensive examinations and containment procedures. Recognizing the boy's suffering, Superman intervenes and rescues him, bringing him to Smallville. There, he seeks advice from his adoptive parents, Jonathan Kent and Martha Kent, who help him reflect on the responsibilities of parenthood. Superman then discusses with his wife Lois Lane the possibility of adopting the boy and raising him as their son. Seeking more answers, Superman takes the child to his Fortress of Solitude. He consults the preserved consciousness of his biological father, Jor-El, who explains elements of Kryptonian culture, but cannot provide information about the boy's origin. While this occurs, Lex Luthor, monitoring events from a distance, dispatches Bizarro, a flawed clone of Superman. Bizarro mistakenly attacks bystanders before rampaging across Metropolis. Superman battles him, using abilities such as his Arctic breath and precise power control to subdue the creature. Afterwards, Superman and Lois officially name the boy Christopher Kent and introduce him publicly at the Daily Planet, concealing his true background with a fabricated story. Shortly after, 3 meteor pods crash near the Fortress of Solitude. From them emerge General Zod, his consort Ursa, and the powerful mute enforcer Non, all long imprisoned within the Phantom Zone. Zod claims the boy as his property and asserts a right to reclaim him. Using a sunstone crystal inside the fortress, Zod projects a holographic message of Jor-El, revealing Krypton's history and the crimes that led to Zod's exile. Conflict spreads quickly. Non attacks Superman directly while Zod delivers a devastating strike. Drawn into the Phantom Zone itself, Superman encounters Mon-El, a Daxamite hero who had been trapped there long before, and together they navigate Fort Roz, a Kryptonian prison. Meanwhile, on Earth, Zod and his soldiers overwhelm defenders, placing both humans and metahumans under siege. Lois Lane and Christopher are caught in escalating danger as the separation between families deepens. Superman eventually escapes the Phantom Zone and rallies against Zod's forces. Realizing the scale of the invasion, he reluctantly allies with Lex Luthor, who assembles a new Superman Revenge Squad. This group includes Parasite, Metallo, and Bizarro, all united by their hostility toward Kryptonians. Together, they mount attacks against Zod's army. During these clashes, the truth of the boy's identity emerges. His birth name is Lor Zod, and he is the biological son of Zod and Ursa. He had been used as a living tether to break his parents free from the Phantom Zone. The final battle culminates with a portal to the Phantom Zone opening over Earth. The gateway begins pulling in anyone touched by its energy, including Superman and Lor Zod. To prevent further destruction, the boy chooses to return willingly into the Phantom Zone, sacrificing his life with Clark and Lois to stabilize the rift. As the portal seals, Zod, Ursa, Non, and their army are dragged back into imprisonment, while Lor Zod remains behind as guardian of the barrier. The storyline ends with Clark and Lois mourning the loss of the son they briefly raised, knowing that Kryptonian and human biology prevents them from conceiving a child of their own. Superman Last Son re-established General Zod, Ursa, Non, and Christopher Kent, also known as Lor Zod, as central figures in the Superman mythos. It explored questions of family, heritage, belonging, and the sacrifices demanded of those connected to Krypton's legacy. Superman Brainiac is a 5-issue storyline. The arc redefined Brainiac as one of Superman's most dangerous enemies, reintroducing the bottled city of Kandor and culminating in a devastating personal loss for Clark Kent. The story begins when Superman detects an unusual sound with his heightened hearing. Investigating as Clark Kent, he discovers a robotic unit disguised as a skeletal figure. This machine proves to be one of Brainiac's drones. After defeating it, Superman transports the drone to his Fortress of Solitude for study. Joined by his cousin Kara Zor-El, known as Supergirl, he learns that every version of Brainiac he had encountered before was only an extension or probe, while the true entity has never left hiding. Determined to confront the real threat, Superman follows the trail of drones through space. He arrives on a distant world where Brainiac captures an entire city, miniaturizes it, and then triggers a supernova that annihilates the planet. Caught in the explosion, Superman is rendered unconscious and awakens imprisoned aboard Brainiac's ship. As he breaks free, he discovers vast chambers filled with bottled cities collected from across the universe, including the Kryptonian city of Kandor. It is here that he finally confronts the true Brainiac, a cybernetic being from the planet Kolu, who is driven by obsession with gathering knowledge and preserving civilizations in his collection. Brainiac directs his ship toward Earth, deploying probes to encase Metropolis in a bottle. Superman engages him in battle, while Supergirl intercepts a massive missile aimed at destabilizing Earth's sun to destroy the planet. During the fight, Superman forms a mental link with the inhabitants of the bottled cities, hearing their desperate pleas. He frees Supergirl, rescues both Kandor and Metropolis from containment, and forces Brainiac out of his ship. The villain crashes into a swamp, where exposure to Earth's microorganisms compromises his systems and strips him of control. Superman defeats him decisively, ending the invasion. After the conflict, Superman restores Kandor to full size in the Arctic. However, Brainiac launches one final attack. A missile strikes the Kent family farm, and in the aftermath, Clark's adoptive father Jonathan Kent suffers a fatal heart attack. The arc closes with Jonathan's funeral, where Clark reflects on the price of his dual existence and the fragility of the life he fought to protect. This storyline firmly re-established Brainiac as a central adversary in Superman's history, returned Kandor in its true form, and permanently altered Clark's life through the loss of his father. It also served as the direct foundation for the following New Krypton saga, in which thousands of Kryptonians arrive on Earth, reshaping Superman's world. Superman New Krypton begins immediately after the events of Superman Brainiac. Following Brainiac's defeat, Superman restores the bottled city of Kandor to full size, releasing more than 100,000 Kryptonians who had been preserved within it. With Krypton itself destroyed, these survivors awaken to find themselves without a homeworld. They establish a massive orbital city within Earth's solar system, declaring it as their new settlement, which they name New Krypton. The sudden arrival of so many Kryptonians creates tension on multiple fronts. On Earth, governments and citizens fear the presence of beings with powers equal to Superman's, uncertain if they will act as allies or threats. Among the Kryptonians, mistrust of Earth's influence grows, with many unwilling to submit to human authority. Superman positions himself between the two groups, working as mediator and offering himself as a living bridge between humanity and Krypton's legacy. Conflicts soon expand beyond Earth. When the Kryptonians claim the moon Callisto, they encounter opposition from the Thanagarians, a warlike species from another planet. Their leader, Vitala Dai, challenges Krypton's claim, sparking an interplanetary confrontation. Superman intervenes, using both diplomacy and his abilities to prevent the clash from escalating into war, temporarily securing peace between the rival civilizations. Inside New Krypton, political divisions deepen. Certain factions advocate using Earth as a foundation for Kryptonian dominance, while others demand full sovereignty and independence. These rival ideologies place Superman in a difficult position as he advocates for cooperation, justice, and restraint. At the same time, Earth's leaders begin preparing for the worst. General Sam Lane, father of Lois Lane and commander of Earth's military forces, secretly mobilizes advanced defenses to counter the Kryptonians should war erupt. In order to better understand and influence his people, Superman leaves Earth and takes up residence on New Krypton. He is formally inducted into the Kryptonian Military Guild and assigned the rank of Commander L under the authority of General Drew Zod, Krypton's most infamous former war leader. While Zod envisions a strong and militarized Krypton, Superman accepts the command role to stabilize his people and act as a counterbalance against aggression. During Superman's absence from Earth, others step in to guard Metropolis. Mon-El, a hero originally from the planet Daxam, who had been freed from the Phantom Zone, assumes the mantle of Metropolis's protector. Meanwhile, in secret, Lex Luthor and human military forces develop strategies and weapons designed to defend Earth in case Kryptonians turn hostile. As the saga continues, distrust and political maneuvering drive events toward war. The fragile balance collapses, leading directly into the storylines Last Stand of New Krypton and War of the Supermen. These arcs depict the full-scale conflict between Zod's Kryptonian forces and Earth's defenders, with Superman caught between loyalty to his heritage and responsibility to his adopted home. New Krypton fundamentally reshaped Superman's world. It restored his people to existence, forced him to redefine his role as both Kryptonian and human, and set the stage for a massive war that tested his duty as protector of two worlds. Superman Doomed is a crossover saga. The storyline focuses on the destructive power of Doomsday, the unstoppable monster responsible for Superman's earlier death, and a new threat that transforms the hero himself. The story opens with Doomsday escaping his confinement in the Phantom Zone and unleashing catastrophic destruction upon Earth. When Superman confronts him, their battle culminates with Superman killing Doomsday. However, this victory comes at a cost. Doomsday's body releases a contagious viral organism carried within his blood. The infection enters Superman's system, slowly reshaping his body into a monstrous hybrid that mirrors Doomsday's form. As the transformation progresses, Superman's physical appearance changes and his behavior grows increasingly violent. His mind becomes clouded with surges of aggression as the infection spreads through him. His closest allies, Wonder Woman, the warrior princess of Themyscira, and Batman, the vigilante protector of Gotham City, attempt to help him resist the infection's control. At the same time, world governments, terrified of a corrupted Superman, declare him an enemy of humanity. Military forces deploy kryptonite-based weapons and containment strategies, viewing him as an imminent threat. Superman withdraws from civilization, struggling both against the virus within and the pressure from the world around him. His mutation advances further, and he begins rampaging in isolated regions such as the jungles of Brazil, where his Doomsday-like form becomes dominant. Wonder Woman seeks assistance from Hesia, an Amazon healer skilled in mystical arts, hoping she can cure or suppress the infection. Hesia, believing the condition irreversible, initially attempts to end Superman's life to prevent further devastation, but Wonder Woman intervenes, refusing to give up on him. Together, they continue the struggle in space, far from the effects of Earth's kryptonite weapons. During this crisis, Superman is forced to battle on two fronts, against the external forces trying to eliminate him, and against the infection eroding his mind and body. At the height of his transformation, he confronts the virus directly through sheer strength of will, forcing his consciousness to dominate over the monstrous impulses. Through this internal victory, he reclaims control of his body and stabilizes his human and Kryptonian identity, halting the mutation. The arc concludes with Superman restored to his normal form. Although he survives, he faces the consequences of having been declared a global enemy, dealing with public fear and mistrust, as well as his own reflections on vulnerability. Doomsday is once again established as a uniquely devastating adversary, while the events emphasize the thin line between Superman's immense power and the dangers of losing control. American Alien is a 7-issue miniseries. It tells Clark Kent's story before he fully becomes Superman, showing the formative experiences that shape his values, his sense of identity, and his eventual decision to use his powers as a force for good. Each issue functions as a self-contained chapter in his evolution, highlighting moments of discovery, doubt, and growth. The story begins in Smallville with Clark as a young boy. He wakes one morning to find himself floating in the air, unable to control his flight. The moment fills his parents, Jonathan and Martha Kent, with both awe and and fear as they try to guide their son through abilities that set him apart from the world around him. The second chapter follows Clark in his teenage years, hiding his strength while working small jobs. When a dangerous situation arises, he hesitates to act, fearing that revealing his powers will expose him. His guilt afterward weighs heavily on him, showing how secrecy conflicts with his desire to help. In early adulthood, Clark travels to Metropolis, where he encounters a dangerous alien adversary. The experience forces him to consider the responsibility that comes with his gifts, and whether he should take an active role in defending others. Later, returning to Smallville, he reconnects with childhood friends and reflects on whether he is ready to embrace the life of a hero. His struggle is not about strength, but about choosing the kind of person he wants to be. The fifth chapter marks his first true attempt at heroism. Wearing a crude, homemade costume, Clark battles Parasite, a villain capable of draining energy from others. The confrontation teaches him that brute force alone cannot resolve every conflict, and that intelligence and strategy are equally important. The sixth chapter shifts back to his personal life, as old friends Pete Ross and Kenny Braverman visit him in Metropolis. Their reunion creates tension as they confront how much Clark's life has diverged from theirs, underlining the distance between his extraordinary destiny and their ordinary paths. In the final issue, Clark accepts the role he has resisted for so long. He realizes that his purpose is not to act as the strongest being on Earth, but as someone who stands for ideals greater than himself. This resolution marks his full embrace of responsibility and the philosophy that will define Superman. American Alien exists outside the main continuity and avoids focusing on large-scale battles. Instead, it portrays intimate moments, family bonds in Smallville, feelings of isolation, moral dilemmas, and the quiet choices that define character. It presents Clark not as a perfect hero, but as someone growing into the man who will one day inspire the world. Superman Rebirth, launched in 2016, was a pivotal turning point designed to restore Superman's classic legacy and merge fractured continuity. The story begins with a one-shot, Superman Rebirth #1. Here, the older, New Earth Superman, the version who survived earlier reboots, visits a memorial for the younger Superman who had died in the previous era. At the same time, Lana Lang, Clark's childhood friend, is secretly attempting to open the younger Superman's crypt so she can bury him beside his adoptive parents in Smallville. The older Superman intervenes, guiding her to the Fortress of Solitude, where they discover that the regeneration matrix, once capable of reviving him, no longer exists. Instead, only a farewell message remains. With this, Superman accepts that his younger counterpart is truly gone. Together, he and Lana travel to Smallville, where Lana completes the burial, and in tribute, the older Superman erects a statue of the fallen hero within the fortress, alongside the memorials to Jonathan and Martha Kent. From there, the Superman series under the Rebirth banner begins a new era. This Superman, the older post-crisis version, steps into the role of Earth's official protector, while balancing his life as husband to Lois Lane and father to their young son, Jonathan Kent. Jonathan, the child of Superman and Lois, is coming into his own Kryptonian powers, forcing Clark to navigate the difficult line between being a father and being the world's greatest hero. Rebirth was more than just a relaunch. It was a reaffirmation of Superman's enduring heart, grounding him in family, hope, and legacy, while making him whole again after years of continuity upheaval. Superman Up in the Sky is a 6-issue odyssey that stretches Superman beyond Earth and deep into the cosmos. The story begins with tragedy in Metropolis, when a young girl named Alice is kidnapped during a home invasion that leaves her parents dead. Batman uncovers evidence that the crime is connected to forces far beyond Gotham, and he calls on Superman to take up the search. Clark makes the decision to leave Earth behind, knowing that the life of one child matters as much as the safety of an entire world. What follows is a journey that tests every aspect of Superman's will. Along the way, he is drawn into a brutal boxing match on an alien world, forced to fight not only with his strength, but with his restraint. He saves a family of extraterrestrials whose survival becomes essential to continuing his mission. On a labyrinthine prison planet, he is tormented by visions of Lois Lane's death, his deepest fear threatening to unravel his focus. Time itself bends against him, sending him into the chaos of a battlefield alongside Sergeant Rock, where Superman must act as both soldier and savior in a war that is not his own. As he presses forward, his resolve wavers between two halves of his being, the Kryptonian heritage that calls him to duty, and the human heart that binds him to compassion. Darkseid, the tyrant of Apocalypse, steps into his path with an offer of aid, but the help of a god of evil is never without cost. Superman refuses the temptation, only to find himself captured and restrained far from Earth. While he is held, alien machines descend on his homeworld, exploiting his absence to strike at humanity. The finale brings the arc to its emotional core. Superman shatters his captivity, rallies his strength, and defeats the invading robotic force. In the end, he reaches Alice, the small and frightened child child, whose rescue justified every hardship endured across the stars. Carrying her safely in his arms, Superman begins the long journey home. Up in the Sky is less about the enemies he fights, and more about the question it poses. What is Superman willing to sacrifice for just one life? It is a story that underscores his humanity as much as his Kryptonian power, showing that his greatest strength is not invincibility, but his refusal to give up on anyone, no matter how small, no matter how far. The Warworld Saga begins when a massive alien ship arrives on Earth, carrying a group of frightened refugees who speak a forgotten Kryptonian dialect. Superman investigates and learns they are Phalosians, a lost branch of his people who have lived for generations under the tyranny of Mongol, enslaved on the mobile battle planet known as Warworld. Their arrival forces Clark to look beyond Earth, to confront not only Mongol's cruelty, but also what it means to lead when entire civilizations are crying out for hope. But Superman is not at full strength. Wounds from past cosmic battles have left his powers unstable, his body weakened, and his future uncertain. Knowing Earth cannot be left unguarded, he entrusts its protection to his son, John Kent, who steps into his father's mantle as the world's Superman. With that decision made, Clark assembles a team, an unlikely band of operatives and anti-heroes from the Authority who agree to stand with him against Mongol's empire. Together, they leave Earth behind and set course for Warworld. On arrival, Superman finds himself stripped of his advantages. Warworld's atmosphere burns with red sun energy, neutralizing his powers and leaving him vulnerable in a place built on blood and conquest. Captured almost immediately, he is thrown into the gladiator pits, where survival means fighting day after day, bound in chains alongside slaves who know only despair. Among them, he finds the Phalosians, broken, angry, but not beyond hope. Slowly, through words and example, he forges bonds with them, especially a pair of siblings who begin to see in him something more than just another doomed fighter. Even in weakness, Superman refuses to yield. Piece by piece, he rebuilds his strength, and when he discovers the Genesis fragment, a cosmic artifact capable of reigniting his power, it becomes a turning point. Empowered once more, he leads an uprising that spreads from the lowest pits to the highest towers of Warworld. His allies fight at his side, the enslaved rise behind him, and together they turn Mongol's empire into a battlefield of rebellion. The final confrontation between Superman and Mongol is brutal, a clash of endurance and will. But where Mongol rules through fear, Superman inspires hope. That difference proves decisive. Mongol falls, Warworld is liberated, and the chains that bound entire peoples are broken. With the Phalosians and countless others freed, Warworld itself is transformed from a symbol of tyranny into a beacon of survival. At last, Superman returns to Earth, scarred but stronger, carrying with him the weight of those he saved and the lessons of his time in the pits. Reunited with his son and his family, he emerges not just as Earth's protector, but as a champion for all who live under oppression. The Warworld Saga reframes Superman not as an untouchable god, but as a leader willing to suffer, bleed, and rise again, proving that his true power is not flight or strength, but the ability to ignite resistance in the darkest of places. Superman, House of Brainiac, is a sprawling crossover that tests Clark Kent's vigilance, his alliances, and his understanding of trust. The story begins with Lex Luthor employing technology drawn from Warworld and devices previously owned by Henry Bendrix to manipulate Superman's public identity. Luthor amplifies the psychic powers of Manchester Black, creating global confusion between Clark and his son Jonathan, forcing Superman to confront deception on a personal and planetary scale. Superman defeats Luthor and imprisons him once again, though Luthor proposes that Clark oversee Supercorp, a company designed to support his heroic missions. Despite this temporary victory, Luthor continues to maneuver behind the scenes. He had previously allied with Dr. Farm and Mr. Graft to research green kryptonite, only to betray them and steal their work. Dr. Farm, in turn, abducts the alien mercenary Lobo for experimentation. Meanwhile, Brainiac begins assembling an army of Jarnian soldiers from Lobo's homeworld and sends them toward Earth, signaling a major invasion. As Brainiac's forces strike Metropolis, Superman mobilizes with the city's heroes, but quickly realizes that traditional tactics are insufficient. He ventures beyond Earth and reluctantly teams up with Lobo, combining his strength with the mercenaries' chaotic ingenuity. Together, they trace Brainiac's operation across the cosmos and uncover that this invasion differs from previous encounters. Rather than shrinking cities, Brainiac targets vital worlds and civilizations, including Lobo's home city, Serena. Flashbacks reveal Brainiac's historical interference on Jarnia, establishing a pattern of conquest and control over Lobo's ancestral world. Political tensions on Earth escalate as Perry White and Bibbo face backlash for anti-alien sentiment, while Amanda Waller discovers that the so-called Council of Light is actually a coalition of Brainiacs, deepening the layers of intrigue. The climactic issues depict a multi-front struggle. Brainiac's Tsarnian army presses its assault on Earth, while Superman, Lobo, and their allies navigate the threats of space. Clark confronts the intertwined influence of Luthor's manipulations and Brainiac's schemes, balancing trust and suspicion to maintain both strategic advantage and moral clarity. Ultimately, Superman overcomes the Invasion restores Serena and halts Brainiac's assault. House of Brainiac concludes with lasting consequences for Superman. The arc reshapes his perception of interstellar threats, tests his ability to lead alongside allies with unpredictable motives, and directly sets the stage for the Absolute Power storyline, where the Brainiac Queen aligns with Amanda Waller and the Force failsafe to form a new trinity of evil.